The leading cause of ladder accidents is perhaps complacency. After all, how bad can they be? They're available anywhere and everywhere, in all shapes, sizes, and colors, with little, if any, moving parts. They're perceived as so common and innocuous that even kids use them. Some people are more hesitant to walk under them than they are up them. On an annual average, there are over 100 workplace fatalities from ladder falls and approximately 22,000 workplace injuries. The most common height of a ladder fall was found to be between 6 and 10 feet. Although most fatalities result from fall heights at or above 16 feet, don't let that lull you into a root cause of complacency. There have been ladder fall fatalities from heights as little as 2 feet. Most ladder accidents are attributable to selecting the incorrect ladder type. This is typically based on ladder capacity, whether they needed an extension ladder versus a step ladder, as well as not taking into account the planned height of the work. Using a worn or defective ladder. This includes lack of inspection. Like any other tool, ladders have a limited lifespan, and that lifespan begins on their very first use. After that, the days are counting down. Incorrect use of the ladder. This is not using the ladder as per the manufacturer's design and intent, and the false assumption that the center of gravity is a constant. Incorrect setup of the ladder. In 40% of all these accident cases, it came down to the incorrect angle of the extension ladder setup. As for the types of injuries resulting from ladder falls, if you do get injured, then there's a 49 to 56% chance that injury will be a fracture, laceration, bruise, a muscle strain or sprain, or a combination of any or all of the above. If you do end up breaking or cracking something, then you have about a 50% chance of it being your head, and this can easily lead to traumatic brain injury. And mere fractions of a second before a worker cracks their skull on the floor or concrete, they're probably sustaining a nasty case of whiplash as well. This is due to the head violently whipping backwards immediately after the body hits the floor. This is what's referred to as the double thump, but we're going to elaborate on that nasty a bit more here in a minute. Anyone falling from a ladder has a 1 in 4 chance of a leg or spine injury, and this can include paralysis. The amount of function lost tends to correspond to the location along the spinal cord where the injury was sustained. This function loss can be a single limb, one entire side of the body, both legs, sometimes even the torso, both the legs and the arms, and, if high enough on the neck, even normal breathing can be affected. And falling from a ladder and landing on your feet does not nullify any of these injuries. Remember, the most common height associated with ladder falls is between 6 to 10 feet. Someone falling from a height of 6 feet can expect to hit the ground going about 10 miles an hour. The body's bones, joints, and muscle tissues are not designed to absorb that type of shock energy, and therefore will more than likely sustain damage and injury. It's just that the damage and injuries are now going to be more concentrated along the bone joints and spinal cord. Ladders have a way of significantly compounding injuries and promoting death through the factors of torque and angular momentum. Now, I'm not even going to pretend to understand, much less explain the physics behind all of that. But what it comes down to is that there is a falling object. Let's call that object the worker. And during this fall, a part of the worker, we'll call this part the feet, come into contact with a stationary object. Let's pretend that's a ladder rung. Once the feet come in contact with the ladder rung, the feet stop moving. But the other end of the object, we'll call it the skull, does not stop moving. As a matter of fact, it accelerates. It accelerates significantly faster than the original fall speed. This means that the skull is now going to hit the floor or concrete surface with far more force than it normally would have during an uninterrupted fall. And this does not just apply to ladders alone. The double thump is a variant of that. It's when the worker's body hits the ground first,
thump number 1,
and based on torque and angular momentum, this action accelerates the head, inducing whiplash as it does so, propelling it against the surface of the ground,
thump number 2,
with much more velocity and force than the worker's body was exposed to. This promotes skull fracture and traumatic brain injury. And this is how workers can and have died from 2-foot ladder falls.